I would like to take this opportunity to share with you some things that that for me are of great worth. You know, when we look at the Bible, you know, like for example, the verse that was written, Christ compares himself to a light. You know, and there are other verses that he compares himself to other things. Let's take a look. And that would be, like for example, John 6:48, he compares himself to bread of life, right? And John 8:12 and 9:5, he compares himself to the light of the world. And 10:9, the door. And then 10:11, the good shepherd. And 14:6, the way, the truth, and the life. And the last one, 15:5, the vine. Now, when you look at these, you think, well, this is just a comparison, you know, a way of expressing yourself, you know, a way of conveying a message. But when you analyze it, each of these sentences, you will see, you will understand that there is a huge amount of truth behind it. And I would like to take one of these comparisons and go a little deep into it so that you can understand why Christ said what he said. Like, for example, you know, when we read the truths of the Bible in a casual manner, we get very little out of it. And even when we try to read it in a, you know, in a more in-depth manner, we find ourselves very limited. And in most instances, we are not prepared to receive such truths, you know, the full extent of what God is trying to say. Like, for example, one of the verses that amazes me the most is Genesis 1:1. What's big about it? You know, you look at it, you read the verse, and it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's it, right? But when you stop and analyze it from a scientific point of view, you will see that there is so much to it. There is actually everything in it. Because here is the foundation. In this verse, you find the foundation of the universe, of everything that exists. You know, when you analyze this verse from a scientific point of view, or the universe from a scientific point of view, it is composed of three elements. It's composed of time, space, and matter, right? And time cannot exist without space. Space cannot exist without matter. And matter, of course, is dependent upon space and time. So there is this interrelationship that one cannot exist without the other. So when you look at evolution in the way they present it, you think, oh, then in the beginning there was this emptiness. But how can emptiness exist without time and without matter? If there is no matter, there is no reason for that vast universe to exist. So when God says here, in the beginning, God created. In the beginning, so time. God created the heavens, space, and the earth, matter. Right here, you have the foundation of the universe from a scientific point of view. So I would like to take you into this comparison that Christ makes of himself to light. From a more, I'm not going to say scientific point of view, but kind of leaning toward that. And I want to take you back to the verse, but I want to emphasize something here. The last three words here. Christ said, then spake Jesus again unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. What is he saying here? What is the comparison that he's making here? he's comparing life and light. Actually, he's making them one and the same, right? So light is life. So if Christ is the light of the world, what is he? Life, right? So it's quite simple. When did he say that? Do you know? Does anyone know when Christ pronounced that? I'll read it from Review and Herald, January 24th, 1882. Inspiration writes the following: I am the light of the world. The Feast of Tabernacles had just passed when our Savior uttered these words in the temple at Jerusalem. Around the court were the golden lamps whose brilliant light had illuminated the city. Pointing to these, and beyond them to the glorious sun, just risen in full-orbed splendor above the Mount of Olives, he declares himself to be the light of men. Well, he didn't point to the sun and say, there is the light of men. No, he pointed to himself. Because, after all, he's the creator of light. So, light. What is light? Why light? How essential is light? So when Christ made this comparison, he really didn't make it in a light manner. He meant it. And how deep of a meaning did that have? Like, for example, suppose, we have all these objects here in this room, and it was dark, and I were to ask someone, turn the lights off. What would happen? What would you see? You wouldn't see any object, right? The only way that you could know what is in the room is through touch, right? You would be able to kind of somewhat have a sense of the shape of the object, but you wouldn't be able to tell the color. You'd be able to tell some of the texture of the object, but you wouldn't be able to determine exactly what the object is. So, I would like to ask you the question, what is light? What is it that makes light light? When you look at it, you say, wow, how beautiful, the rays of the sun, shining through. Do we really see light? Can we really see light? So in order to understand what light is, we must understand its properties. And I'm going to explain some things here that I hope you'll be able to grasp the concept behind it. So, again, the question, can we see light? Do we see light? Light cannot be touched, cannot be tasted, we cannot hear it, we can't even see light. We can't. What do we see? The results of the action of that the light has upon everything else that surrounds us. We can only see the results of it, but not light itself. I want you to keep in mind, as I describe what light is or how it works, the properties of light, I want you to keep in mind what Christ said, I am the light of the world. And always compare to see, like for example, we cannot see light. Can we see God? What did Christ say about the workings of the Spirit of God? It's like what? The wind, right? We cannot touch it, we cannot feel it, but we can we can sense it, right? So it is with light. So it is with Christ. We cannot see. So it is with light. We cannot see it, but we can see the results of it. So we can catch glimpses of light, what light is. Like, for example, when a sunbeam angles through a dust-filled room, when a rainbow appears after the storm, we see the results of light. And what would be light if there would not be something to process that information? What would be? So there is something really amazing here. You know, there is light and there is an organ that can process and appreciate the effects of light. So it is with Christ, right? Christ is the light of the world. He is shining upon us. But what is needed in order for us to appreciate that light? A mind, right, that can process that. So let's take a look at the properties of light. Light. This is really, really interesting. I mean, this is something that if you go deeper into it, you will have. You will be amazed to see what goes on in the universe, especially when Christ said, in Genesis 1:1, visible light is a very small segment of what is known as the electromagnetic wave, the part of the wave that is visible to the human eye. So here you see the electromagnetic wave in its full length. And right here, in this wave, in this very small section, is what we can perceive, what we can see. Very, very small section. So in your farthest left, you find your gamma rays and your X-rays, ultraviolet, infrareds, and the radio waves. So the most harmful are to the left, and the least harmful are to the right. And it's not that the ones on the right are not harmful. They are also harmful. Like, for example, you're exposed to sunlight, what happens to you? It can hurt you, right? You can develop skin cancer. So this entire wavelength is very damaging to us humans if there would not be the protective orb that God put into place around our world. There would be no life. But let's go on. So the higher the frequency, the more energy. The less the frequency, the less energy. The higher the energy, the more damaging it becomes. Now, something very interesting about light is that it travels in any length, in any wavelength. It travels at the same speed. It all travels at 186,000 miles per second. And something interesting about light, and I want you to consider this, is that any of these waves, or any wave that is emitted, or multiple waves, they can occupy the same space. So when Christ compared himself to light, what does that mean? No darkness, but what is one attribute of the Godhead? Omnipresence, exactly. Exactly. So multiple waves can occupy the same space, which we cannot. Now, something interesting also to notice about light is, even though light travels at at the exact same speed, what happens, what has been done in laboratory is that in 1988, some researchers at Harvard University were able to slow down a beam of light to the mere speed of 38 miles an hour. So it is possible to slow down light, a beam of light. What did God do in order for us to be able to see the light of life? What did he have to do? Yes. God had to become man so that we could see that light. Christ was made flesh so that man could see the glory of God. So now let's take a look at the next slide here. What is light composed of? Or how many parts make up light? 3. 3. The Godhead is made up of 3. So you have your magenta, your cyan, and your yellow. If you mix cyan with magenta, you get the blue. If you mix magenta with the yellow, you get the red, and yellow with cyan, you get green. But if you mix all 3, what do you get? White. So when you see white light, what is actually that you're seeing? All 3 lights, right? Together. And if we go back here, you do not see in the visible light spectrum, you do not see white light because of this phenomena. White light is the composition, is the makeup of all 3 colors. So, now notice this. Red is the lowest energy visible light. I'm going to go back again. Notice the red is on the right, the blue is on the left, highest energy, right? So red is the lowest energy visible light. So in the red hot object, the atoms are just getting enough energy to begin emitting light that we can see. So if you start heating up something, put a piece of metal on fire or electric stove, and it will start emitting light only when it gets to the red hot state. And then as you heat it up even higher and higher, the color changes all the way through the hottest, which would be blue. So now let's look at another property of light. And this has been discovered fairly recently. And it was by a well-known man, Albert Einstein. Says that what makes up light? The electromagnetic wave of electricity the electromagnetic wave is made up of electricity and magnetism, 2 components, which are related, traveling together in the same direction and perpendicular to each other. They're working together in the same direction. What did Christ say about him and the Father? Yes, I and the Father are one. Very interesting. Christ didn't say that I am the light just because. So, in 1905, Albert Einstein introduced to the scientific world the idea that light has dual nature. That is, light is composed of wave and particle. Today's physicists have embraced this idea. Now, in Desire of Ages, page 464, we find the following. God is light, and in the words, I am the light of the world, Christ declares his oneness with God. I mean, does it make sense? What does light have to do with the oneness of Christ and the Father? Well, when you start studying light, you will understand this oneness. So, again, I am the light of the world. Christ declares his oneness with God and his relation to the whole human family. It was he who at the beginning had created the light to shine out of darkness. I and the Father are one. Now let's look further. Now this is where it gets really interesting. Oops, I'm sorry. Let's take a look at the property of lights. You know, besides besides color being the color of light being composed of actually 3 colors, light has 3 properties also. The first property is called reflection. When I say reflection, what comes to your mind immediately? A mirror, right? Mirror is where you can see your reflection the best. If I go place myself in front of the wall here, can I see my reflection? Does it mean that it is not reflecting? Yeah, the problem is that in order for the reflection to be perfect, to be an exact replica or copy of what I am trying to see, the surface has to be extremely smooth with the least amount of interruption so that the image can be reflected perfectly. So this is why mirrors are so efficient, because glass is, I think, the smoothest surface that one could obtain. So you put a coating of copper in the back, and then what do you have? A mirror. You can see yourself perfectly, right? So light can reflect on any surface, but it will reflect itself most perfectly on a perfect surface. Reflection. What did Christ say about us in light? Let what? Your light so shine. But that light comes from where? From Christ, so that light, Christ, bounces on us, and if there is no imperfection, if the surface is very smooth, what is going to bounce back? His image. And who is going to be glorified? Very, very interesting, this property that light has. So let's go to the next property. You have seen this, right? Have you? Children, especially, going through science class, you learn that very quickly. What's happening here? Is the pencil actually broken or what? Go ahead.
It's not broken, but it's the water that makes it look like it's broken.
Right, exactly. So this is called refraction. Not reflection, but refraction. This is what happens when light goes through a surface. It will bend based on whatever the material is. If it goes through, it will bend and then come out through the other side, back again in the same direction, but in a different position. Okay? So this is what happens. So refraction occurs when a ray of light passes from one transparent medium, in that case air, into another one, which is water, and back into air again. So then gives you that strange shape. how can we compare this to Christ? You know what's interesting? Diamonds have a property that's very unique. Diamond, besides reflecting, it also can refract light in a very different way. So diamonds wouldn't be so glittery if they didn't slow down incoming light much more than, say, water does. So what happens is that so if you shine light in water, the water will slow down the light, and then once it goes through the water, it goes back again into the air, and it goes back to the normal speed. So what happens with diamond is that the property of diamond is that it can slow down even more the light, and then you have the effect that you have once it hits the backside of the facets, and it bounces back in a way that makes it look what it is. So when the light of Christ shines through us, what happens? See, if we were all made up of the same material, we would all be identical. I mean, the how would I say, the effect of the light that comes from Christ would be identical, right? But no, we are all different. And the light that shines in each and every one of us works in ways that are unique to the individual. And this is the beauty of creation. So each one of us can shine in a different way. Each one of us can shine in a unique way because of this property that the light that comes from Christ has. Now there is a third one, and this third one is even more interesting. It's called scattering. Talked a little bit about it. You know, remember the mirror, because the surface is so smooth, it does not have the scattering property, right? But like a wall like this, if I shine light on this wall, what happens? Light scatters everywhere, so it doesn't come back as a beam anymore. So, like, let's use a piece of paper. What enables us to be able to read or to see the letters on a piece of paper? It's this property that light has. Because the paper is not like the mirror, it scatters the light in a uniform way so that you can see what is not reflecting light. Let me make it a little simpler for you to understand it better. Have you seen glossy paper? There's matte and glossy paper. Which one is easier to read? Matte. Why? Why is it? Matte absorbs, right? It actually scatters the light much better than a glossy paper. So glossy paper, you know, depending on the angle, you kind of have to adjust it to be able to read because of this problem. So the scattering property of light is what allows us to see the different colors of the light spectrum. Now, we're going to go further into something that I found so beautiful, so amazing, is on how light works. So light is constant, right? The speed is constant. So what changes light is the object that is exposed to light. What did I say here? What did I say if I apply it to God? So the light that shines from the cross is the same. but it changes based on the objects or the people that is exposed to it. How we react to that light shining on us is how the light will react, or how the light will actually reflect in this case. So let's take a look at how objects react to light. Oops, sorry. So depending on the composition of the object exposed to light, some of the colors that make up light can be absorbed, thus removing them from the white light combination. The absorbed colors are the ones you don't see. You see only the colors that come bouncing back to your eyes. This is known as subtractive colors. What am I saying here? What am I talking about? So, every object is exposed to light, or any object that you expose to light will react in a different way, or light will react, behave in a different way. What am I talking about? What happens is that some objects, remember diamond? Light will shine on diamond, and depending on the position that you place it, it will shine as blue or reddish or greenish or whatever color, right? This is why diamond is so beautiful, because of this fact. So what is happening inside? So like, for example, why is the wall white? Why is this black? If the same light is shining on it, how can it be?
Color combination?
Not really. It's the property of the object that light is striking against. What happens is that since light is composed of three colors, the object may absorb, let's say, red. Okay, if I absorb red, what is going to bounce back? I'm sorry? The green and the blue, right? So let me show you, let me explain to you a little better so that you can understand it. Like, for example, the leaf. What happens with a leaf? The leaf is green. Sometimes it is yellow or brown, reddish, or whatever color. So what happens to it that causes the color to change? If you were to take a green leaf, yellow, red and brownish, or whatever color, bring it to this room, turn the lights off, what color are they? Do they become? It's all the same color. Because light's not present to actually display how the object behaves, or how light behaves in relationship to the object, right? So let's see if I can explain this in a way that is simple. Like, for example, the leaves of green plants contain a pigment called chlorophyll, which absorbs the blue and red colors. So what's left? So if it absorbs the blue and the red, what's left? Green. This is why leaves are green, because the leaves of a tree or plants, they absorb the red and the yellow, the blue and the red, leaving the green to be reflected. It is only when light is reflected or absorbed by the objects that are exposed to it that we can appreciate its properties. So now this is kind of interesting here. So, the light of Christ is shining on us. And what is reflecting back?
One element, continue, and duplicate, and then you continue combination and combination, duplicate more elements.
Remember the fruits of the Spirit? Remember? What are the fruits of the Spirit? If we were to take all the fruits of the Spirit, it would be the white light. It would be the full reflection of the light that comes from Christ. But if we have a little bit of selfishness in the heart, what will be absorbed and not reflected? That's exactly how it works. So any trace of sin in us will prevent some of the lights, some of the colors to be reflected. And we will actually absorb it. We will hoard it. So, an object can only be perceived as they reflect light. Can Christians be perceived in any other way? It is only through the light that comes from the cross of Christ is reflected in us that others can see that light. Without the properties of light, the splendid hummingbird would be dull. Flowers would have no color. Without light, our eyes could not perceive colors or shapes. We would have to touch an object to perceive its shape, but not the colors. Light is truly the glory of creation. So, what would the glory of creation be? So, what is then actually the glory of creation? Can you tell me? Man. Because man is the only object in the universe that can reflect the light that comes from the cross. I would like to invite you to open your Bibles to John chapter 17, 21 through 23. And I believe you're going to have a better understanding of this verse here, because for me this is one of the most beautiful and verses that express best the glory of God. You know, we think, oh, what are we? You know, what is humanity? What is this world? You know, evolutionists, they look at this world as just a speck of dust in the universe. But in the eyes of God, what is this earth? What is mankind? What is the value of this that God created? That caused God Himself to come down and become one of us. So here it is. John 17, 21 through 23 says the following. That they all may be one. Father, that they all may be one as thou, Father, art in me, and I in thee, that they also may be one in us. So remember, light is composed of two parts. Remember, The Godhead, the Father and the Son. Now, He wants to join the human family to Himself, to become one with Him. So again, that they all may be one, as Thou, Father, art in me, and I in Thee, that they also may be one in us, that the world may believe that Thou hast sent me. And the glory which Thou gavest me, I have given them, that they may be one even as we are one. I in them and Thou in me, that they may be made perfect in one. And that the world may know that Thou hast sent me and hast loved me as Thou hast loved me. If you stop to think, analyze these verses, and look at the depth of what is being said here, you will stand amazed. You will stop and think, how could the Creator of the universe stoop down and reach such one as me, as I, as we? Now we can have an idea of what was man when he came out of the hands of God. The value that God placed in that one part of His creation, mankind. When we stand and contemplate this love, our lives will be touched. Our lives will come to a point where we will cease to reflect self or absorb the blessings that God gives us, and will begin to reflect that light. Because the purpose of God is to save humanity. But humanity can only be saved through you and I. I don't know if you know that. We are the channels through which God can reach other souls. So may God help us and bless us in this regard, that we will allow that light to shine and perform the work that God has designed to do in us, is my prayer. Amen.